My name is Stuart Weir. I'm the acting head of the Cambridge Commons. We are the Cambridge branch of the Equality Trust. And we campaign for an end to inequality and deprivation in and around Cambridge, and for a more equal Cambridge as well, because the fact is that everybody, rich or poor, benefits from a more equal society. We are sponsoring this meeting along with FECRA because we believe that the City Deal process is utterly unequal, undemocratic, and unaccountable. Worse still, I think, it is misusing and usurping the powers that properly belong to our elected local councils. We are on the verge of what the City Deal Board calls a period of consultation on proposals and options, which are practically, in fact, cast in concrete already. Important options are being bypassed and not put to the public. The board's consultation is top down and one way down. And these are men, and as far as I know they're all men, who are in a hurry. They offer us a choice from their menu. Some of the dishes on their menu are destructive. Some are unworkable, and some are futile. But they know what is best for us. We think that the people of Cambridge and the villages around Cambridge should have an equal say. Tonight, I hope that we can begin to choose for ourselves what our priorities are, that we can create our own agenda for socially just proposals that have the interests of the community at heart and preserve the character of the city and its surroundings. Tonight's agenda is in three parts. First, Terry McAllister, a specialist Guardian writer, and Stuart Tupford, a nurse at Addenbrooke's, will talk on the effects in Cambridge and around the effect of economic growth. And then we will ask you to add your own experience of growth and your thoughts about it. Secondly, Wendy Blythe, the chair of the Federation, will talk about the impact of the City Deal, followed by more debate. Third, and this is in a way the most important part of the evening, I think, I will ask you all to make suggestions for an action plan to take control of the way in which Cambridge deals both with growth and the City Deal. And finally, I'm going to give Wendy Blythe an opportunity to propose a resolution that you can vote on. Please can everyone speak briefly. We want to get as many people in as we can. To assist speakers, we're going to set up an egg timer to show when 2 minutes are up. This is not going to be a guillotine, I promise you that, but it will give all of us a chance to judge whether we want somebody to carry on talking or not. Secondly, if you've got a mobile phone, please can you switch it off? Secondly, if there's a fire, you exit through the main door at the back there, or the door to my left. So there's two doors if there's a fire. Right. And then there's a very complex situation regarding the loos. The people who run the church are very worried that overuse of the loos will render them inoperative. So, and they would much rather people walk to the public loos at Grand, whatever it's called. But if you're absolutely utterly desperate or very young or very elderly, then you will be reprieved. You're ready to use the loos here, which are at the back here on the left. Okay. So, first, Terry McAllister.
Thank you, Stuart. And thanks everybody for coming out this evening on a Monday when it's almost, given what's happening in Westminster, it's a dangerous thing to leave the radio or the television for about 2 minutes because there'll be a body piled up in Downing Street. In Cambridge, it made me feel, and it possibly made you feel, that it's slightly strange to come and talk about very parochial Cambridge issues at a time of sort of political turmoil nationally. But it's fair to say there is some deep resonance here, that some of those who voted to leave the European Union are actually expressing their frustration at feeling marginalised and left behind. And we at the Cambridge Common wanted to use this event to highlight concerns that the city deal and the wider local plan that surrounds it risks leaving people further behind. It's worth saying that the Cambridge Commons, I mean, it's our job, as Stuart pointed out, to highlight social justice issues and rising inequality. We haven't got political affiliations. Cambridge is a highly prosperous city, and to most visitors, they only see this, these gorgeous buildings and signs of affluent, highly priced shops and 4x4s. But the fact is that some of the outlying areas around the city are in the bottom 20% of deprived areas of Britain. And it's possible that some of the 30% who voted against our staying in the European Union in the referendum voted to leave because they were protesting at not being heard. Certainly we see little in the city deal and the local plan that is geared to halting inequality. And it seems hard for residents or workers to get their voice heard. The assembly that runs the city deal does hold some public meetings at County Hall and will tell you that it's open and transparent. But the experience of those trying to get a message across to them, often residents who've suddenly heard about an intrusive new build or road plan, is very negative, as you'll no doubt hear from Wendy Blythe when she speaks. The executive board of the city deal, the ultimate decision-making group, has our democratically elected council leader on it, Lewis Herbert. But he's in a minority to defend the needs of the city. The 4 other members of that executive represent either the county, the district, business or university interests. And while of course we're all admirers of the academic excellence that comes out of this university, it's the colleges that are the biggest landowners in this area and engaged in their own huge expansion and sell-off plans. So keen to grow, it appears, that the university is directly funding to the tune of £200,000 5 council planning officers. Can that be a good thing? Will Grosvenor Estates or the other developers be demanding their own planning officers because the council is overwhelmed? And the wider worry is that the decision makers have contracted some kind of growth at all costs fever that we fear will make existing equality problems in the city worse rather than better. The wider local plan talks about 35,000, possibly 45,000 new homes being constructed around Cambridge. This is supposedly to support a goal of creating 45,000 new jobs. At least 9,000 of the new homes will be in the Green Belt, and half will be promoted by the colleges. Now, we at Cambridge Common are very keen to see jobs created, houses built, and transport improved, but not just for the privilege for those with top office jobs who can afford sky-high rents and high house prices, or are happy to live without public transport. I went to a meeting with the so-called Cambridge Ahead Group, another strange mixture of elected officials and vested interested parties, and they seemed extremely excited that Cambridge was growing faster, they said, than China in terms of jobs. But employers there seemed more concerned about how they were going to attract new staff from Shanghai than from Cherry Hinton. How does this help key support of public sector staff? And how will this not put more pressure on overstretched and under-resourced hospitals such as Adam Brooks, and we'll no doubt hear this from Stuart, or the schools? While a job bonanza may roll on for some in the science parks or in an ever-growing university, the government's austerity programme, at the same time, forces the city brings staff layoffs and makes life increasingly intolerable for the less well-off who use the diminished services most. And when it comes to housing, all we've seen so far is very expensive homes, while developer commitments to social housing get endlessly chopped back. I'm extremely grateful, we're very lucky that we've got a good local paper and it can't be relied on in most cities these days, but we have with the Cambridge News, which tells an array of stories, one of which I picked up, which talks about the Grand Central development at Rustad Road. I won't mention the developer to save their blushes, but they managed to convince the council that it should reduce the number of affordable homes on that project from 30% to 6%. In fact, the council's target is actually 40%. The developer said it couldn't make a profit unless it had only 6% social housing. 12 months later, that company sold that project, which had cost it in total £3 million for £15 million. It's the same when you look at other developments around the train station or Northstowe, where developers managed to or trying to push the council into backing down on public provision of a transport hub or a commitment to 40% social housing in all developments. We've seen that Trumpington's suggestions that up to 70% of the houses built there have ended up in the hands of absentee landlords for rent or investment. What hope is there for the next 35,000 houses? Where are the teachers, the nurses, those working in the college dining rooms and other modestly paid vital ancillary staff going to live? Now, the Cambridge Commons was established 2 years ago in response to a groundbreaking book called The Spirit Level, which highlighted the destructive forces unleashed by inequality inside a community. The author Richard Wilkinson from York University, a social epidemiologist, was in Cambridge in May, and he highlighted how inequality undermined a sense of collective well-being. He also provides cogent details of how it can affect negatively everything from the number of teenage pregnancies to prison populations. And it shows that it's not just those at the bottom who suffer from inequality, but those at the top who experience a deep sense of unease, if not fear. Now, what's all that got to do with the city deal? We believe that any programme of spending and development needs to have social justice at its heart to build a successful local community where we're all in it together. We also believe that the city deal should start with Cambridge as a city now and not talk mainly about the needs of the future, in particular about the needs of employers. There's already a speculative feel about this city. A recent study by the New Economic Foundation put Cambridge at the top of Clone Town, Britain. High rents are driving all but the big chains out of the centre of Cambridge. But we seem to have moved on from that to Klondike, Cambridge, a kind of mad gold rush where the precious commodity is housing. And while everyone pays lip service to the beauty of the old buildings and the green spaces in Cambridge, why are the trees and green verges on the main arteries into this city being ripped up? We don't need new or wider roads. We need much fewer private cars and more public transport, say electric buses. Surely we could expect a city stuffed full of climate scientists, clean tech companies and cycling enthusiasts to be a model for 21st century living at a time of global warming. The first city deal initiative in the area where I live was to suggest a road, although Lewis Herbert insists it's a busway, but it's still a strip of concrete right through a piece of green space called the West Field. These proposals coincided with the UN climate change talks in Paris. 185 governments, including our own, agreed for new low-carbon economies and living strategies that were needed to be created to save the planet. Well-thought-out cities are key to this, and yet there's little in the city deal or around Cambridge that reflects these new imperatives. Go to Bristol and you'll hear about promises to be carbon neutral by 2050, or Nottingham and its low-cost Robin Hood energy supply system. There was no talk, for instance, in any new field link being restricted to, say, low-carbon hybrid, electric or hydrogen buses. These vehicles are not something of the future. They exist now. And yet what we do see is 87,000 cars rolling into this city every day. Most people going to their place of work very slowly and bringing with them safety, health and carbon pollution issues that no one needs. The most democratic and healthy form of transport is surely walking or cycling, though clearly it's not available for everyone all the time. But has anyone tried walking down Milton Road, Hills Road, or Warts Causeway, say, during some parts of the day? It's deeply unpleasant. When there was talk of action to cut car use, it seemed somewhat half-hearted. Already plans for a possible congestion charge seem to have been dropped before they've even been consulted on. Now, I lived in London when the congestion charge was introduced, and there was a huge opposition to that it would completely destroy all the retail business in the centre of Cambridge, but it worked very well. But it worked because it came alongside a massive increase in buses. Now, Cambridge, by contrast, has the most impoverished public transport system. The basic train services are already suffering from severe overcrowding, raising questions about any new station for the likes of Addenbrooke. Equally, there are only 4 publicly subsidised bus routes around Cambridge city centre, with a smattering of other private services from monopoly provider Stagecoach. This is entirely inappropriate for the Cambridge of today, never mind any Cambridge with 35,000 new homes. Now, we know finding solutions to some of this is not easy when central government's cutting grants, negative about council housing, and thinks everything should be done by the private sector. We know the university itself suffers from lower public funding and higher living costs. But at a time when there is talk of decentralising power to the eastern region, we need our own strategy for improving life in this city. Yet the lessons of the past, building up satellite villages around the city with no proper infrastructure or public services, do not seem to have been learned. More than this, we at Cambridge Common fear all the plans we do know about will only increase house prices as it becomes more of a magnet for investors and bring more, not less, traffic into this historic city. The current proposals seem largely in the interest of developers, land sellers and big employers. Supersizing Cambridge in a thoughtless way is socially divisive and will cement inequality. We do not want to see Cambridge become a gated community for those lucky enough or rich enough to live here. Cambridge needs to pause while the democratically elected City Council outlines a proper vision of how the city will be developed in the interest of those who live and work here, whether rich or poor, now as well as in the future. We need to know what's in it for all of us. The question has not been addressed and it hasn't been answered. Thank you.
Terry, that was a fantastic oration. Can I now call upon Stuart Tuckford from Addenbrooke to talk?
Good evening, everyone. As you said, I'm Stuart. I'm a charge nurse in neurosciences at Addenbrooke and a representative for Unison at the hospital. I'd like to start by echoing the sentiments of Terry and Stuart so far and saying I think it's fantastic that we've got this opportunity to debate the direction of travel in the city and the way Cambridge is going. I think quite often so far the plans of the city deal and of the local authorities have been presented to the public with very narrow terms of interest, very narrow ways of people expressing their opinions on them. So I think it's great that people come together and have a debate about how they want the city to actually grow. I'm not from Cambridge, as you may tell from my accent. It does actually get quite confusing in my work in neurosciences at the hospital. I've had people working from Comas who, when I've asked them if they know where they are, have said to me Scotland. Which does get very confusing for some people. I did move to Cambridge several years ago because I wanted to become a highly skilled health professional, because I wanted to be trained and I wanted to be able to provide the safest and the best care that I can. Addenbrooke, if you didn't know already, is a major trauma centre and a specialist centre for neurosciences for brain and spinal injuries for the entire east of England. The hospital performs surgeries and interventions that other regional hospitals can't. And that's a powerful draw for health professionals. The opportunity to work at the cutting edge and to learn from the very best was irresistible for me. It's something I feel is quite often not expected of nurses and other public servants more generally. I often hear talk of attracting the top talent in business, in science or in research, but it seems to be rarely applied to people who work in our public services. And it really should be, because we're at a time of huge challenges for the NHS and for our other public services. More and more is being expected: better services, transformations in the way we provide care, greater cooperation between acute hospitals and the community, but all with less funds and less staff. It's been likened to trying to turn your dinghy into a speedboat at the same time as bailing it out. Healthcare is increasingly complex and challenging, and we need to be able to attract ambitious, energetic and determined people to provide the services that we need. Yet we pay carers in the community barely the minimum wage or barely more. We're often hearing talk about neglect or poor care services, but we seem unwilling to provide carers a wage that would enable them to have a stable life or to fund the training and education necessary to help them be the best that they can be. The wage of a community carer is about £7.70 an hour starting. A store assistant in Aldi probably earns about £9 an hour. So is it any wonder that people choose not to do the complex, challenging and emotionally draining job of caring for people? And this is where the City deal and the wider associated investment in the region in Cambridge comes in. I don't need to tell you how overheated the Cambridge housing market is and how much the cost of living has increased in recent years. NHS staff are paid a nationally negotiated wage on different scales and different bands, which have risen by only about 2% in the last 5 or 6 years. For a long time now, we've relied on the goodwill and the sacrifice of NHS staff to keep their services going, but the situation can only hold for so long. Now, I love my job, and I want to be able to do it as best as I can, but I do need to have a life as well, and a future comfortable life in Cambridge is growing steadily more elusive. I live in a house share with 5 students, 5 academics, PhDs, etc. Now, it's not awful, I'm not complaining, but having done 10 years of communal living while being a student and while working in Glasgow, I would quite like some privacy. I would like to be able to get into the bathroom before I go to my shifts, and after 13 hours coordinating the neuro block of the hospital through the night, it is frustrating to be able to come in and not get to the oven to cook your dinner. My mother visited me recently, and in my house she commented, she said to me, "I don't know if I could live like this." And it did make me angry to comment. No, I wasn't too angry with my own mother, but I don't feel like I should have to be ashamed of where I live, or be ashamed to invite family or friends around. I did go to university, I slogged my way through placements in the NHS, and I worked doing minimum wage care work as well. And I've worked hard at my job since I got here, but still I'm unable to afford to rent or buy a good home in the city. And I'm in quite an enviable position. I'm a band 6 charge nurse at the hospital, and I spend most of my time supervising or directing the care and work on the wards that I go to. And we rely on band 2 or band 3 healthcare assistants to provide most of the direct care to patients, to wash them, to feed them, to change them. And it's a job they perform admirably and with dedication and patience in very challenging circumstances, but I've got no idea how they manage to get by on the wage they've got, how they can provide for their families or pay their rent. Most, to be honest, drive for miles around Cambridge from villages and the other towns because they can't afford to live locally. And it's planning a future here that's the most painful thing. My girlfriend is also a nurse at the hospital, and I want to be able to provide for her and possibly provide for her family in the future. But in Cambridge, I just can't see how that's going to be possible. I'm very lucky that she's not too demanding, but even then, the basic thing of a secure, comfortable home seem out of our reach. We can't save at the same rent as house prices, we can't save at the same rate as house prices are increasing here. And it's also the same for doctors and for other people who work in public services. And when aspiring young brain surgeons are moving to Manchester because they can't afford to rent a home in the city, you know that something's wrong. And we're here to talk about investment in Cambridge, but we can't divorce that from the reality of what's happening to our public services. When I got here, I was lucky enough to be given specialist training in nursing patients with spinal cord injuries at the London South Bank University. But cutbacks mean that training like that for Addenbrooke's nurses is completely under threat. And not only does that jeopardise the safety of patients being cared for in our specialist centres, but it means less recruitment of aspiring and ambitious healthcare professionals. And the level of stress and pressure of working in a packed, strained hospital is enormous. And when you add in the need to squeeze every penny to meet a target of £49 million savings this year, and you've got a toxic work environment, the local NHS, to be frank, is running on fumes, and if nothing's done to address the cost of living here, the engine will surely at some point give out entirely. It's short-sighted not to recognise this and to keep piling on the pressure that the City deal and the recent New Ocean deal are doing. Both say good things about affordable housing, but the reality is they're driven by a desire to provide more growth, more investment, and bring more jobs and more people to work here. And key in every one of these deals is the desire to deliver this growth. But we should always be questioning whether this growth, this investment will actually make us healthier or make us happier. Huge parts of the country suffer from chronic underinvestment, but Cambridge seems to have enough for several cities altogether, and all the associated problems that come with it. Now, I think that good public services are an integral part of healthy communities, Not only do the problems associated with growth make it difficult for us to attract and to keep public servants, but the new homes and the thousands of new residents and the investment place an intolerable pressure on the services that aren't getting any similar kind of investment. One of the key reasons for the financial problems that Addenbrooke's faces is the inability to perform the specialist surgeries or the treatments that we need to do as a specialist centre, because all the beds are filled up with patients from in Cambridge and around there. So it's very sad to say, because I love the city and I love the area, I love living here, but when your girlfriend keeps on insisting showing you pictures of 4-bedroom houses that you can afford in Glasgow, it's going to be impossible to cater for too much longer. So, and I feel there's a lot of public servants and a lot of people in the hospitals and schools that will be feeling much the same. So I'm glad to see that people are questioning the deals that were being offered and questioning whether this actually is good for people to live here and good for our communities. Thank you.
These are the voices we need to hear, and we don't hear them properly. We're now going to have a period in which I want you to contribute to the discussion by saying, what do you think are the effects of the growth agenda, the way that Cambridge is growing? And let me tell you that we put these things in the door and encourage people to fill them in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call one person from the list and one person who puts their hand up. And I'm going to try and, I've got very bad eyesight, but I'm going to try and make sure I get a proper gender balance and, if possible, an age balance. So I'm going to start off with, I think there's another sheet. No? Okay. I'm going to start off with Tony Daboon. Yeah? Yes, come. There's a microphone at the back for you.
Can everyone hear me? My question is about air pollution. We're going to get additional buses on Milton Road, but they're not actually going to stop on Milton Road. As far as I'm aware, all those buses will be running on diesel fuel. We already have nitrous oxide levels that exceed the European levels, safe levels. So, how is providing additional buses actually going to reduce air pollution, which is at record levels along our busy major roads?
Thank you very much. Now, any hands, please? This gentleman here with the glasses.
I ask myself the question, is the city deal here to solve a problem, or could it cause a problem? I think City Deal is about growth, turning Cambridge into a global city, and make house buying less affordable. Cambridge problems, I think, needs controlled or less growth. 40 years ago, there were local usage conditions on office development to limit the influx of people and housing demand. Today, it is growth, growth, growth. Perhaps a free cycle lane or bus lane, albeit poorly delivered, is just a step faster.
Thank you. Is Hilary Gay here, please?
Yes. Thank you. The new developments in Cambridge are disproportionately large, disproportionately dense, and disproportionately ugly. How can we make our planners and the developers be more socially responsible?
Thank you. Right. Someone from the audience, and then after that, John Preston from the list. Somebody from the audience, hands up, please. Here.
right behind.
Is it a resident? I just wanted to say that I think Cambridge has many problems, many different problems, and it seems to me that the solutions keep coming through for one at a time. They're not looking for integrated answers. So you could change your transport problems by changing the times that sixth formers go to college when they're actually much more receptive to learning. There are ways in which we need to look at strengthening the whole infrastructure of the committee. Could this money, could this investment create some kind of new type of endowment that can build social housing, that can then fund revenue for transport? It needs new thinking, bold thinking, new models that haven't been explored, not just how to get the money out of Treasury quick enough and spend it on things that are going to be damaged for a long time. You can't replace 50-year-old trees. You can't take that back. You can't make that better quickly or with any amount of money.
Thank you very much. John Preston.
Right, thank you. I want to raise the issue of environmental capacity of Cambridge. We live in a market town that has become a city. If you look at the streets round about us here, they are market town streets. They're not designed for a 21st century traffic. We have been in a situation where, since 2006, plans have changed for more growth on the edges of Cambridge. We haven't yet assimilated all the flat growth. We still haven't solved all the problems that are extant at that time in relation to transport, in relation to affordable housing. It's all too clear, and more growth magnifies it. Yet the city deal seems to be based on an assumption that yes, we can achieve growth with no problems. But just look at the questions that arise from it. I'm just going to raise the issue of connectivity. We've already had the route across Westfield mentioned. We also have the proposed busway going across different meadows. Just to achieve the connection they want, there's going to be irretrievable damage to environmentally sensitive areas. As far as I'm aware, there's been no systematic assessment of what's precious, what will get damaged, and what the risks are.
Thank you very much. Is David Orwell here, please? Actually, before you start, let me just say that this session is being recorded and filmed, and it will be shown to the City Deal Board and their assembly, so your voices will be heard. Whether they'll be taken on board is another matter. Thank you, sorry.
My point was regarding Milton Road. I've been to various meetings regarding widening all the extra lanes that's supposed to be on the agenda. I don't know what the latest situation is, whether it's been decided, but it's admitted that if you put every suggestion in and widened, you'd have no difference in the time to do the extra 1 mile. So surely just on the wastage of money to do this, it would be absolutely insanity.
Please. The person here, the white guy. Yes, yes.
Thank you. As we've heard, the city deal is undemocratic.
Who is this?
What can be done to take power away from the city deal board and give it back to the elected councillors?
Well, thank you for that lovely, unscheduled. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I've been told to ask people to say their names when they're...
I was just about to
Thank
do
you very
that.
much, thank you.
My name's Joanna Gordon-Clark. I live on Victoria Road. There's one bus service that's irregular, it's the number 8. If you you want to go out on a Sunday night, you can't get home unless you can walk or drive a car because the bus stops before 6. That's just a small point. I've watched Cambridge deteriorate, to my mind, over the last 15 years. And I wanted to say something about solar power and green walls. Any new development should have to put in adequate alternative technology. And green walls will work. They're a rather new, odd development, but they will work to make the whole area more pleasant. I'll stop there.
No, you don't need to if you don't want to.
I think I'd better.
Okay, right. John Mead. We're really working the road with Mike people very hard here.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm John Mead. I'm an ecological surveyor, among other things, and I do a bird survey of the area just south of Adam Brooks Hospital, and so I'm really being asked to speak today just to talk a little bit about the impact on the green belt of the pressure that Cambridge is under at the moment. The particular area I look at, which I'm sure is not particularly untypical of other bits of the green belt, is under threat from the Amberbrooks development. May well have a busway going through it, which may have strengths and weaknesses to it, but it's just sort of evidence of how areas are coming under threat. Now, it's very easy to dismiss the land around Cambridge as being arable desert, and yet the areas that I look at carry very high populations of threatened, what we call red list birds of high conservation concern, like grey partridges, corn buntings, yellow hammers, things like this. They have very good populations of these birds, and I think that in any development that is undertaken as part of the green belt, or indeed as part of the wider expansion of Cambridge, it's critically important that we take the needs of nature, who can't be here tonight to speak, into account to try to avoid damaging biodiversity.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to take two more people, one man and one woman. The man here with the green jumper. Thank you very much.
My name is Bernard Townsend. Like most people here, I was extremely surprised at the result of the referendum, because it spelled out one thing very clearly to me, and that was how out of touch our leaders are with the people. The people spoke, and the leaders were very surprised. Why can't the leaders in Cambridge ask us, the ratepayers, the council taxpayers, what we think about this mad gallop to expand and change our city beyond all recognition? Why can't we be asked our view? Do we agree with this mad, headlong rush to expansion, damaging our green belt, damaging our environment, or have we a different view? And I think the referendum taught us that there are surprises to come when you ask the people their views.
Yeah.
Keep on.
Hello, my name is Kate Brier. I have family living in the city of Groningen in North Holland. And what I would love to do one of these days is to show an assembled company like this a short film called Groningen, the Cycling Capital of the World, which indeed it is. And they've solved the transport problem, the infrastructure problem, the housing problem, the parking problem, all at once. They decided in the 70s and more in the 90s that you had to do it all at once. You couldn't do little bits of cycleway, and little bits of your carriageway, little bits of this and that. You have to do it all at once. And that's what they've done. And it's an extraordinary city to be in. It's very quiet, lots of green space, cars keeping out to the edge. If they want to go to the other side of town, they have to go round the ring road, they can't cross the middle, and so on. And we sort of have little bits of that in Cambridge, but we're not doing it whole.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'd like to see in Cambridge. But I'd also love to show that film to some interested parties one of these days.
Well, I hope we'll be able to persuade Becca to show it the next meeting.
Anyway, thank you.
Can I say that Alan Brigham is here, and I'd certainly like to hear him talk. He probably knows more about Cambridge than anyone else. So, Alan, where are you?
Thanks. Can you hear me? I'm going to be a bit controversial because actually I don't have any problem with growth, and I suspect everybody here lives on what was a field 150 years ago. I'm going to look at you. Who can tell me what the population of Cambridge was in 1800? Some of you know because you've been with me. Well, about 9,000. So 200 years ago we were the size of Chatteris. In the 19th century, the population went up fourfold to 40,000. And personally, I think that all the complaints about change today, the people who lived here in the 19th century saw far more change than any of us have seen or are going to see. Between 1900 and 1950, the population of Cambridge again doubled, 40,000 to 90,000. Between 1950 and today, the population of Cambridge almost stagnated. The reason for that was because of the Holford Report, and the Holford Report said what I'm hearing a bit of tonight is that Cambridge should remain a small, attractive market town, and all the new development should go out into the necklace villages. And that's what's created today's traffic problem, because all the jobs have remained in Cambridge, everybody's living in the villages, and they're coming into town. I was a road sweeper for 30 years. When I started, most of the people I worked with lived in the Mill Road, Cambridge Road area. By the time I left, most of them were living in Little Port of Chatteris. When I look at the referendum result, it's quite easy, if you're in favour of remaining, to look at those results. If you live in Cambridge, you feel a bit smug. You know, we voted 75% to remain, the rest of the country voted to leave. But look at the surrounding Fenland, where virtually everybody voted to leave, and actually they see us as part of the problem. We're comfortable, we're living in a beautiful city, we've got jobs. They haven't. My personal view is Cambridge needs to grow, it will grow, it has always been growing for the last 200 years. It's about the nature of that growth. It's about, in my view, not having a compact city may be okay, but we seem to be going towards a squash city, which is not. And as the city grows, it's about taking the qualities of the city centre. The city centre is shrinking as the town gets bigger. The qualities of the city centre, for which Cambridge is renowned, are not going out into surrounding neighbourhoods. To me, that's key to how that growth is managed. The other thing is that what makes Cambridge so attractive are the green corridors and parks. The British aspire to live in the countryside. If you live in Cambridge, you can actually have the countryside around you. One of the dangers of City Deal is instead of having green corridors drawing the city together, we're going to have traffic wedges dividing communities. Now, and I think that is the challenge. And the final challenge is actually making sure that the homes that are built actually go to local people who need them. Service industry workers, public sector workers. At the moment, there's an onslaught of student housing anywhere near the city centre, which actually isn't for students, it's mostly for sixth form crammers who will expand as much as they can because Cambridge is a very profitable name for them. So rich students go overseas, they've got nothing against them, but actually there's a limit to how much many can come here. And actually those spaces where these student houses are going should be spaces for local people to live, people over 50 who want to stay in Cambridge. And the other problem, as has already been mentioned, is the fact that the 40% affordable bit, which the council insists on, is actually being eroded by developers all over the place. You've heard about Western Homes and Rustap Road. It's just happened off Seven Place, off East Road. It's happened out at Northstowe. And yes, of course, a developer will always say it's too expensive, I can't afford to provide it, if they give them the excuse. That's what people do. So I think it's really, really important. We have affordable housing. We continue to have those green spaces that make Cambridge attractive. But development itself is not something we should be frightened from, because we're all part of development in the past. I can more or less guarantee that. So we need to find a way of shaping it and making sure the transport corridors don't become wedges that divide communities, rather than ones that bind them. And I'll finish with, I've just noticed this. Near this place lies the body of William Finch, an eminent merchant of this town who deservedly esteemed for his great probity in business and benevolence to the poor. Died in 1762. I don't know if you've noticed that, Paul, but William Finch came here from Birmingham. He came here to work in an iron foundry in Cambridge that became Macintosh, as some may remember that. And I think it's a reminder that people have always come to Cambridge, and there have always been business opportunities here, and that's actually what gives us the prosperity we've got. So we shouldn't knock that prosperity, we shouldn't knock growth, but we should control how it's done and do better, much better than we're doing now. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next two debates, as it were, I'd like to say that we took a big chance, a gamble, in actually booking Great St Mary's Church for a meeting. And Wendy assured me that loads of you would turn up, and you have. And for that, thank you very, very much indeed. But we do need to pay something like £500 for the church and organising costs. So we're going to have a collection there, if that's okay. And if you can be generous, we'd be very grateful, so that we can do this sort of thing again. Thank you. Wendy.
Can everybody hear me? Good. Well, sorry, we've got a note here of hashtag supersize Cambridge with a C-A-M-B. Is that right, Anthony? Supersize CAM. C-A-M-B at the end. Okay, so for those interested. Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming here tonight, and thank you, Cambridge Commons, for inviting the Federation of Cambridge Residents Associations to speak. FECRA was set up in order to give residents a voice on planning matters and to facilitate communication between resident associations and the city and county councils. Our aim is to provide a network of mutual support and information and to give residents associations a voice as city stakeholders. Today we comprise 90 residents associations and neighbourhood groups, plus other community associations and individual members. That's a powerful community voice. Although FECRA's members may face different issues at heart, what unites us is that we want to preserve and improve the quality of life in Cambridge. We're a conduit for expressing the views of our members. We've done this at Council and Greater Cambridge City Deal Board and Assembly meetings. As you may be aware, the City Deal is an agreement between central government and 3 local authorities to invest in Greater Cambridge. That is, Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire, to encourage growth. £500 million of our taxpayers' money has been allocated by central government to be spent on transport, housing and training in the area over a 5-year period from April 2015 to 2020. Over the last year, the City Deal transport proposals for bus lanes, cycleways, widening roads compulsory purchase of gardens, and loss of attractive trees and verdures on Cambridge approaches have outraged many city communities and local villages. The schemes have been responsible for the biggest increase in FECRA's membership since it was formed. Over the last year, there have been over 17 new residents' associations formed and set up, and with more roads in the city in scope, there may well be further associations formed. The schemes for North Cambridge along Histon Road and Milton Road have galvanised thousands of North Cambridge people into action in, according to the Cambridge News, one of the most powerful displays of local political protest this city has ever seen. I'm here today because many residents across the city have expressed to us their concerns about the City Deal schemes and their feeling that taxpayers' money is not being well spent. They're saying that the City Deal seems to be obsessed with heavy engineering and bus lanes, but has no vision of an integrated public transport system for the region, one that will benefit all communities. For example, the City Deal's own projections have shown that there's just a 3-minute saving in bus time by having a bus lane on Histon Road, for which State Group has stated the business case is risky. So let's be clear what this means. 3 minutes saving in bus time equals verges, trees, gardens, and people's quality of life and environment. How does this fit with City Deal's stated objective of improving people's quality of life? Why do this when there's been no attempt to enforce parking controls to address the problems of citywide commuter parking that might address congestion? People are asking, why don't the needs of ordinary residents figure in any City Deal equations? Why is the only basis on which success is monitored an economic one? Why do proposals include no cost-benefit analysis of the environmental and social costs of schemes? Why do survey forms never ask whether what's proposed would lead the respondent to change mode? For example, take a bus, walk, or cycle. On hills and Huntington roads, there's been no attempt to use landscaping and greenery to give cyclists safety and separation from traffic. Nor does this concern feature in other cycleway schemes, which seem concerned only with wider cycleways, regardless of environmental considerations. These schemes, for example, do not address the serious issue that Cambridge has of surface water. Even after moderate rain, the new cycleway paths on Hills Road are flooded. Consultation on all transport proposals has taken place before there's been any attempt to address the city centre's issues of capacity. Even now, there's not enough bicycle parking in the overcrowded city centre. Residents are asking, why all the proposals for bus lanes when, as we said earlier, what people really want is better services? Residents on Milton Road watch 30 buses in 1 hour coming down Milton Road, but only one bus will stop for them. On Histon Road, residents cannot even get a direct bus to the hospital. Their service has been stopped. Carers associations working in this area have contacted us to say that no one has consulted them about the transport proposals. They're concerned about the damaging impact schemes will have on the most vulnerable. How are their staff going to reach people? How are they going to travel across the city? If you live in a village, you cannot get a bus outside of office hours. So why not spend City Deal money on more park and rides? Why not spend the money on attractive transport hubs and station park and rides? Is this really all just because we have to spend the money? People are asking, where is the vision in City Deal of what makes Cambridge special and a good place to work in? The attractive tree-lined city approaches with their lush green verges, the commons and meadows. When people think of the unique character of Cambridge, they don't just think of the historic centre, they think of the city's romantic rural nature, its quirkiness, Cows on Toobic Common, opposite the Botanic Gardens, the long fingers of verge on which the ducks of Hobson's Conduit like to sit. The city's attractive leafy suburbs approaches frame this medieval city and its world-famous university. Many in Cambridge are worried that City Deal's bland urbanisation, ugly illuminated bus shelters with advertising, the destructive plans for bus lanes and widening of roads, the removal of common land, of cutting down of trees, and loss of roads will damage community cohesion. Tearing the heart out of all those unsung green spaces, replacing them with concrete, will create a barren subtopia. Do we really want this beautiful heritage city to look like just like any other city? Do we want its approach roads to be like the North Circular? Why is there no priority for what people value about where they live? No allocation of resources for obtaining data about where they travel to? No money set aside for landscaping, for an expert architectural eye or conservation expertise to design schemes with a care and attention that will see Cambridge's streets and roads treated as neighbourhoods? These are residential roads, people's homes, not corridors. Streets are public space, and public space has to suit the needs of all generations. The old, the very young, the ill, the frail, and those with limited mobility can't all get around on their bikes. For a city that in 1988 was deemed to be worthy of UNESCO World Heritage status, the reluctance to allocate any resources to a design quality panel, an outside professional design and landscaping, is unbelievable. Why isn't enhancing and protecting the heritage of Cambridge a priority? Schemes for bus lanes and cycleways have made no attempt to engage with any of the City Council's heritage reports. Despite the importance of the city setting being integral to the Council's Greenbelt policy in the democratically approved local plan, proposals for bus lanes impact on Greenbelt on all sides of the city, including Ditton Meadows, the Goss, and the West Fields. Despite all the outcry about the impact of the off-highway route, the A1307 on the Goss announced last March, this environmentally destructive option is still on the table. The business stakeholders who benefit were predominant at the scheme's briefing, unlike city residents. It raises the question, do those planning these schemes really support the Cambridge community's local plan? We've come to the reluctant conclusion that the process of democracy appears not to be working, that people's concerns are neither being listened to or addressed, and the City Deal is determined to push plans through as quickly as possible in an attempt to grab the government money. City Deal appears to see engagement with residents and their communities as simply a means of dealing with opposition to decisions. Why has it chosen to ignore the most powerful display of local political protest the city has ever seen in North Cambridge, and the 3,000 signatures of that North Cambridge community to retain their trees? It's as if that protest never happened. Likewise, the consultation on the Camborne to Cambridge bus route was described as a stunning success, despite the comments of over 900 respondents that this was misleading, and ditto 3,000 signatures about the damaging bus route across the West Fields. Many City Deal meetings are held during the working day, so that those who work have to take a day of holiday to attend. Residents have noticed the recent initiative to set up local liaison fora, but how will these work in practice? The Cambridge News has described them as an absolute democratic nightmare. There is massive uncertainty about stakeholders, the frames of reference, and who can or can't vote on resolutions. So how much serious engagement will actually take place? Will this be acted on? An officer in a transport channel recently described the difficulty of running consultations with Cambridge residents, many of whom were said to be academics, lawyers, and well-connected retired folk, people with time on their hands, whose problems turn out to be exaggerated. Officers have provided no data to support their arguments. There are no cycling statistics for Milton Road, no information about destinations of where people are going, because that information doesn't exist, and because City Deal doesn't want to spend the money on getting it. City Deal engages the supporters, the business stakeholders, who will benefit in preference to residents. There are no environment, heritage or resident groups on the City Deal Board or Assembly. No Cambridge champion. There is no scrutiny role for elected representatives on the Assembly, just an advisory role. Potential objectors are being given as little time as possible to engage with decision-making information. The Milton and Liston road reports were published just before a bank holiday weekend, with a decision-making meeting on the Tuesday after the bank holiday. Perhaps even more significant, Assembly members who were supposed to be advising the board didn't have important information in good time to prepare for the meeting. They were told the fact that bus lanes will only save 3 minutes in the form of an addendum to the agenda just before the meeting. Some might say this would suggest that decisions about bus lanes had already been made. People want growth with heart and compassion. They need to have a say. They need to feel empowered. Residents in both the city and villages want a vision of an integrated transport network that everyone can understand and support. They want decision makers to listen to their concerns about the need for a vision about what transport really means for lives and neighbourhoods. The City Deal is due to get even more money and delegated powers, with no more scrutiny or public accountability. Many are concerned that issues of democracy and lack of accountability will be even worse. They have no confidence that there will be any meaningful consultation. It's important for City Deal to engage the whole community in a way that makes it possible for all of us to work together to achieve what is best for this beautiful city and all its communities and world-famous university. It's even more important to do this now, as who knows what the future holds, and the resources for ensuring this may be less. Thank you.
It's intolerable what's going on. I can't believe it myself. A modern city, such an improvident and incompetent process has been allowed to charge ahead almost unchecked. Amazing. Anyway, is Hetty Griffiths here, please, from the list? No. Oh, okay, right.
Thank you. Hetty Griffiths is a manager of Beaumont Healthcare. She's unable to be here tonight, but she wanted to hear her points about the problems that care providers will face if the City Deal implements their plans to allow only buses on key routes at peak hours. So her letter, she said, it would be interesting to hear what plans have been put in place for delivering care services to vulnerable people who live in the area and how it's been proposed that the staff reach them. Many of these people require up to 4 calls a day at different times. This is to ensure that they're safe, assist them in and out of bed, they require personal care and need to be assisted with meal preparation and feeding. Many of these people are unable to move without the assistance of the carers. If the roads are going to be for buses only, will they be sent a longer way round, sent to park some distances from the homes of the service users, making it difficult to arrive on time to calls? The staff already have a difficult time getting to these people and being able to park. This would increase this difficulty. Would they be told they have to use buses? It would also be of great interest to hear the views of the County Council, who commission all social care in the community, and from the NHS who commission continuing health care, which in many cases is end-of-life care. How are the staff going to reach these people if those roads are for buses only? I'm sure they've thought of the emergency services that will continue to use the roads,
But are we making allowances for the district nurses who make daily visits to allow them to travel through? I'm sure at no time has anyone considered the domiciliary care service, which is a vital service but always forgotten when changes or plans are made. Again, it will assume that the voice of the providers, Again, I will assume that the voices of the providers will not be listened to, or even asked for their opinion, because as usual, we just have to put up with the changes, and again, those who suffer will be the most vulnerable in society. Thank you.
I'm going to stick to this because Nan Fowler is here from Diston Road and she's not feeling that great, so she can get away over here. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Nan Fowler and I live just off the Diston Road near Mayfield School. These are my personal comments, but they have touched a chord with many others, and I have been asked by several Cambridge residents' associations to present them to this meeting. People from all parts of Cambridge and beyond are clear in the pressing need to show the City Deal authorities that not only will their present proposals make life extremely unpleasant for residents, it will be spending taxpayers' money on something that simply will not work. Once the road widening of the bus and cycle lanes has been done, which itself will create chaos, the environment will be ruined without alleviating the problem. Surely the main aim is to make better bus services possible for commuters and residents, so that people can be persuaded to use them instead of their cars. I refer chiefly to motorists because for so many of us, especially those living in or coming into the Diston Road area with its many schools, cycling is simply not, despite the assertions of the cycling lobby, a viable alternative, either because for reasons of poor health, disability, or simply advancing age, many of us are not fit enough to cycle, especially in the winter, or because, for example, parents need to drop children off and then carry straight on to work, and could not cover the distance in time, or convey several children safely by other means. Indeed, in many cases, there will be no cross-city bus route. Corridors, which merely funnel traffic into the centre, ignore the fact that our once beautiful city has been built up like a spider's web, and connections between the spokes need to be possible. Indeed, they are vital to the life of the city. It is a huge irony that the councils have already pushed ahead with changes to the road systems, which fly in the face of advice given by those who best know how they will affect the bus services, which we need and they seek to improve, namely the bus operators. The floating bus stops, particularly those in Hills Road, have done exactly what Stagecoach said they would do. They made life more difficult for passengers and drivers alike, resulting in pedestrians facing added risks, traffic being totally held up, and bus tables being subject to even greater disruption, resulting in January's summary withdrawal of the direct service to the rail station and Allenbrooks Hospital, once provided for the benefit of Cockenham, Histon and city residents by the City Aid. Yet certain councillors still insist that floating bus stops are popular and more should be built. Moreover, they ignore Stagecoach's protestations that the proposed bus lanes will not work. The roads simply cannot be made to provide a continuous run, thus making them ineffective for the buses and causing even longer traffic jams by restricting road width. So much for representing the interests of the taxpaying public. Consultants have been employed and perhaps contracts negotiated on the basis of theoretical information.
I'm sorry, can you wind up because we've got lots of other people who speak. That's all right, please. You can leave the letter with Wendy or something like that.
Well, it was Wendy who asked me to read the letter out.
Well,
I would prefer to carry on. I've only got a little bit more.
Okay.
Thank you. Consultants have been employed and perhaps contracts negotiated on the basis of theoretical information which local people know from the evidence of their daily experience will simply not achieve the intended aims while causing huge disruption and ruining lives. Fortunately, the authorities appear to have realised that banning left and right turns onto and off Milton Road and Eastern Road would achieve only chaos, but so far that has been their only concession. It seems they are still hell-bent on sacrificing our best environmental elements, grass verges and trees, over 100 of the latter, and in some cases even people's front gardens, for a nominal saving of what might by their own calculations be a shaving of literally a couple of minutes off bus journey times. Who in their right minds would even consider that worthwhile? Of what real help would that be to the travelling public? The two options which might really help appear to have been summarily excluded, namely a peak hour congestion charge and an updated traffic light control system to create green waves, as on the continent, to improve traffic flow, cutting down on the jams and fumes generated by a present system of red waves, which bring everything, including buses, to a grinding halt every few yards. And extending the residents-only parking permit scheme to prevent commuters from using residential streets for freeway parking appears to have been given scant attention, despite its success in the areas where it has already been applied. At present, the juggernaut is rolling on, steered by those with selective hearing and limited vision, to borrow the words of someone at a recent public meeting. At meeting after meeting, exhausting for all participants, residents voiced their concerns that these seem simply to disappear in leaves. What else do we have to do to demonstrate that people simply will not stand for being treated like this? Thank you.
Get the balance right between people who put their names down on the list. So anybody want to put a hand up? The gentleman right at the very back there. And if there's a woman here who'd like to... Yeah, okay.
My name is Edward Lee. I lead the Smarter Cambridge Transport Group. We're a voluntary group, and we've been working very hard over the last 9 months to develop what we believe is a coherent, sustainable alternative to some of the proposals the City Deal has put forward for improving transport through the region, not just in Cambridge, but in South Cambridge too. And we see this as a huge opportunity. The danger is that it will be wasted. There is a lot of money on the table, and if it is spent well, it really could solve the problems of the city and South Cambridgeshire. All the problems you've been hearing about, the fact that the disconnected communities, the congestion and all the rest of it. But it needs vision, and it also needs time. And unfortunately, the central government hasn't given us time, or hasn't given the City Deal Board time. But actually, we need to back them up and say, you need time and you need to go to central government and ask for that time. Because it is far, far worse to waste the money on short-term measures that don't work, that destroy the city, just because that's what we were told to do, or that's what we were given the scope to do. I'll try to be brief, but essentially there are things that money could be spent on. That could be spent within the next 3-4 years, in other words, within the timetable of the City Deal, that could solve a lot of the problems. And it's mostly involved in investing in South Cambridgeshire, not in the city. It's not building bus lanes in the city. That will have a trivial benefit compared to the damage that it will inflict. Actually, railways is where we really need to be investing heavily. The Newmarket line in particular has enormous potential if only the City would recognise that and would accept that it needs to bully government in order to get things done quickly. The Newmarket railway station is desperately underused. It's the same Newmarket, the same size town as Ely, and it sees 20% of the footfall in terms of passengers. If we had a station at Fulbourn, that would suddenly open up access to the railways for a whole section of the city that currently has to drive into the city to get to the train. Within the city, we need to tread carefully. There are things that we can do in the short term, such as parking controls, such as improving some of the cycling infrastructure, providing some of the more connections into the city for cycling. But but doing anything radical or drastic needs careful thought, because if we get it wrong, we won't be able to undo it. So I urge you to get behind our group, Smarter Cambridge Transport. Please join us as a member, sign our parking petition, which is at the back, and subscribe to our mailing list and join us and support us in lobbying for an alternative vision for the city deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. I'm sorry I didn't mean to cut you off prematurely. I'm very sorry. The lady here.
I'd just like to give you a short quote from the recent Cambridge Alumni magazine, a really depressing article about growth in Cambridge. Victor Christou, CEO of Cambridge Innovation Capital, the 50 million venture capital firm in which the university is the largest shareholder, feels that Cambridge is on the cusp of a new era. When I came here 3 years ago, he says, we all knew Cambridge could become this huge centre for development. Now the question is just how big it will become. The machinery, the infrastructure and the capital are being put into place at once. Now I disagree with Mr. Christou that the key question is just how big it will become. For me the big questions are what kind of growth, for whose benefit, and at what social, psychological and environmental costs.
Thank you very much. Sorry, can you give me your name?
Hello, my name is Katie Preston. Just very brief, I think a lot of what I've heard this evening has been illuminating and very informative and extremely rousing. I think the only practical suggestion for how we go forward is the one that we've heard from the person from Cambridge Smarter Transport. Because what I'm wondering is what we actually do from here. So many people have said very eloquently and very forcefully about how terrible the situation is and how we're not being heard. Residents' voices aren't being heard. City dealers aren't listening. Our city councillors aren't listening. So what I'm feeling is lacking, please, is what we actually do. How do we actually maybe put some more political pressure on people to make some of the things, to alleviate some of the things which we all know and experience are going to be harmful both for ourselves and for our children, grandchildren, future generations, and how to actually make things better for all of us. And the positive suggestion from the person from Cambridge City Transport was great, but we need more than that.
I agree, thank you very much. We're going to give everybody a chance to suggest what we should do for a final kind of debate around the idea of what to do. But at the moment, I carry on the effects of the city deal and so on. And a lady called Charles Nisbet from the Milton Road Residents Association.
Intriguing. Paul, and I watched the people departing at speed from the back. Well, I want to talk briefly about what it's like being face to face with the City Deal Board and trying to get them to listen. I went to the City Deal Board on the 9th of June. I presented the petition from Milton Road, which at that stage was just shy of 3,000 signatures. It's essentially save the trees. That's the emotional bit about Milton Road. Save the trees, and it's absolutely right, and they listen politely. That's it, finished. No discussion, nothing more about it. So we're going to keep that going, and we're going to try other routes in. I also had a question to ask, and essentially it said this. In your papers for this meeting, it states that work on the access study has not identified options for managing demand from the city. That's how do we get the number of cars down. It would remove the need for other city deal interventions such as Milton Road, Piston Road, or Camborne to Cambridge schemes in Transplant programme. That's the bus lanes. It can't be true. The anti-congestion measures proposed for other parts of Cambridge will undoubtedly also have a beneficial impact on traffic in the Milton Road, Histon Road and Maddening Road areas. So it must be folly to rush into irreversible and intensely unpopular engineering works without waiting to see if they're actually needed. But it has to be wrong, worse than wrong, wicked, to spend public money in a way that will actually do harm just in order to obtain more public money. And then they ask them to do something about it. Well, again, there was polite silence, really. But I went to a meeting last week of the residents' associations, called by the City Deal so that we could say we had a talk to someone, run by a charming, courteous young woman. And I asked the question at the end, what do we need to do to get ourselves heard? Because clearly we're not doing this right. And she said, but in Milton Road you are being heard. We listened, we took out all those bits about right turns. Now what we're not being heard about, of course, is that we don't need bus lanes. And it suddenly occurred to me, this is like going into a restaurant and you sit down and the waiter comes up and says, so, how would you like your steak? And I say, but I don't want steak, I want fish. And he says, but no, it's steak. And you go to that steak, and actually you ought to be jolly grateful that we're consulting you about how it should be done. Because we know best, and you're going to get it well done whether you want it or not. And that's exactly what it feels like trying to actually, I think the City Deal have a problem, and put yourself in the position of the elected councillors. They're not experts. They have professional officers who brief them, who draw up the plans, who arrange for consultants to come say what ought to be done. It is extremely hard for the city councillors and county councillors to tell these officers that they're going about things the wrong way. We need somehow to bolster the confidence and the knowledge of our elected representatives so they will stand up to council officers, some of whom, I think it's quite a small number, definitely know what's wanted because it's what they did when they were trained in the 1970s, and they know the answer, and the answer is bus lanes. It isn't right, but we need to help our councillors to take the decisions that they ought to be taking.
Thank you very much.
Several times tonight, which is that for over a year, many of us have been going to Cambourne, Guildhall, other places for meetings, working quite hard to prepare a question that we thought was reasonable if challenging, asking for a yes or no answer, and getting something else. Not quite sure what it was, a lot of words, sometimes inaudible, but something going around Robin Hood's barn as opposed to answering the question as to why do we keep coming back to bus lanes when every consultation has said we don't want them, when every expert group that we all seem to have spoken to, all the evidence seems they're not necessary. What we need to do is cut congestion first. Now we're hearing about plans to cut congestion, and some of those are perfectly good. Maybe they don't include all of the options, and perhaps they should. But we need time for those things to work themselves through to see, do we need those bus lanes? But we can keep going to this Mad Hatter's Tea Party all the time, as Charles just said. Whether we want to keep it up, I don't know, but I agree we need to decide what to do. I think the strength of the meeting tonight, if we can come up with a resolution, might be one thing we can do, just to say, once again, there's a different way of looking at things. Please listen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I'd like to do is pick up the point this woman here made earlier on, that we need to decide what we're going to do, what can be done. And it seems to me there are two strands to this question. One is, how do we organise ourselves politically to do something? how to put pressure on this board and on the city council and other councils. And that's political, but also people like Edward have ideas about the technicalities of the system and the way in which a more workable and less damaging alternative process is possible. So let's just have any ideas you have, either political or technical. Well, that's the word I'm using. And I'm just going to take hands from now on, please. The gentleman over here.
Thank you. My name is Genius Carrington. I think I'll try and combine two, something that's political and something that's technical. I think we've got to be really brave in Cambridge. We've heard all evening about green routes into town. We've heard about the bus routes that aren't working. I think the only thing that they will listen to, and I'm really glad that Francis and Lewis are going to hear this, is we don't want the money. If you're going to destroy the city, we don't want the money. Imagine what they would do with 100 million. They've laid out plans that will destroy this with 100 million. If the Treasury gives them another 400 million, imagine what they're going to do with that. So give the councillors the strength, give the city board, lobby them, write letters to them and say, be brave, negotiate a better deal. Go back down to the Treasury and say, we need more time. You need Cambridge as an engine for growth. You know, there are people around here that, we do support growth. We've got 3 ships in our shield, for heaven's sake. We were and always will be a trading city, and that will pay for many things that we all want, but we don't want it at any cost. So to the City Deal Board, be brave, go back down to the Treasury and negotiate a better deal. Thank you very much.
By the way, we stopped collecting because we were scared that it was going to interrupt people being able to hear when. So when you leave, if you haven't given us a donation, please do so, because the more money we collect tonight, the better able we will be able to take up all these issues that we've been discussing tonight. And we want to say something? Yes, please do.
Anthony Carpenter, I'm one of the camera people here this evening. Right, specifics. Thank you. I haven't put anything else on YouTube yet, so I've still got work to do. Specifics. There are a number of council meetings coming up, so I would be grateful if several of you could go to them. This Thursday, East Area Committee meeting, 7 p.m. at the Cherry Trees Day Centre. For any of you who live in Coleridge, Petersfield, Romsey or Abbey Wards, please do go, otherwise it's just going to be me and my dragon. For those of you who live in the West or Central area, so Newnham, Castle, Market Wards, Tuesday the 12th at the Wesley Methodist Church, again, 7 p.m. Please do go along and meet your councillors. How many of you in this room know somebody who is under the age of 25? Hands up. Good, that's lots of you. Conspicuous by their absence. Is there anyone here who goes to school or college? Please raise your hands. 1. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are talking about the future of Cambridge, we should be having children and young people involved. So one of the things I want all of you to ask yourselves is, which of you are going to go to the young people or the schools that you know to say, come on guys, let's get involved in this process, and bring the young people along to the meetings and say, look, what are your ideas on public transport? Because for those who are going to go to sixth form college or even to university, they are the ones who are going to be predominantly affected by whatever the planners come up with. Finally, a couple of other campaigns who are campaigning on issues of public transport. They may not necessarily all agree with each other, but you've got the Cambridge Cycling Campaign. Hands up those of you who are members of the Cambridge Cycling Campaign. So we've got quite a few people in here. Please do go and grab them. We've got the rail Haverhill. Did you know we had a rail link all the way out to Haverhill, and we could have one going all the way to Chelmsford? So we talk about the Newmarket Rail. What about that one? Rail on Head for Hill, look it up. The stuff that they've come out with is brilliant. I put it to the City Deal Board and they were just like, shh, no, sorry guys, no one know about it. There are people outside of the county who want to get involved and we need to be reaching out to them as well. Like I said, please do engage online as well as offline. It would be brilliant to get more of you involved. Thank you.
Right, hands please. You again.
This is more of a quick question. Has anybody approached RMP about this?
Yes. I think you've got to realise that MPs are almost as powerless as the rest of us are, especially if they have the Labour Party label. Stuart, you're on that
Thank you. I don't want to hold the microphone, so I won't say anything too much, but I'm not sure how many people are aware of the devolution deal that's been approved by the City Council to go out to consultation recently, but there's a lot to talk about the City deal, but in some ways the devolution deal they're discussing is almost as insidious and will have much more effect over local decision making. A lot of people have talked about lobbying the City Councillors and going to committee meetings and things, but if this devolution deal passes in its current arrangement, it will mean that a lot of those powers will no longer be with the local elected officials and will go to a combined authority between 7 different councils from Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So it's very likely that if this deal passes, many of these decisions will no longer be in the hands of your local elected officials, but will be driven by an elected mayor of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, who may be susceptible to political influence from government. I always thought that genuine devolution should come from people and should come from the bottom up, what people want and what people are clamouring for, but what most commonly seems to be happening is a kind of poison package being handed to people that this is your stake, as you said, and how are you going to like it done. So I think people really need to scrutinise their more highly elected officials and put pressure on government to offer us genuine deals that people want, rather than the packages they've already decided they're going to accept and we can choose what flavour, basically. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Richard Taylor, and the time I think we can get action is at election time. I think that's the most powerful time to do something. I live in King's Hedges on Milton Road, and 70% of the people in that ward didn't vote in the City Council elections in May, and I don't understand why that is when we're threatened with such great changes in the area. We've got the new station in the area and we've got the changes to Milton Road. So I think we need to get more inspiring candidates. We need to look beyond the political parties to find the candidates, and also just to look into and research who the candidates are. Like we've got Stuart Tuckwood here. It's not been mentioned, but he's actually a candidate. Despite the fantastic speech he's given tonight and his passion in persuading us, he didn't get enough votes. He got 401 votes. That wasn't enough to make him one of our city councillors. And we've got our county council elections next May, and it's those people who have given the power away to the City Deal. If we want them to get that power back, then we need to elect councillors on that manifesto to take power back to our local elected representatives, rather than centralising it at the City Deal in just the 3 councillors on the City Deal, or even higher up, as Stuart's just mentioned, with the new mayor for Peterborough and Cambridgeshire, who would be even more remote.
Man with his hand up, but any women? Oh yes, there you are.
This follows on from the earlier comment about getting young people involved, but please can you be careful how you object to things. The Milton Road campaign, as far as I've seen it, seems to have been entirely about saving trees. And it's only this evening I've heard that there were real proper objections to the bus lanes. I had to move away from the Milton Road area about 5 years ago because my job moved to the south of the city and I just couldn't get there by bus because the service that stops on Milton Road is so terrible. So I was in favour of the bus lanes if that was going to produce a better bus service. So you're much better off with your headlines being "Don't do that, it won't work," rather than explain why you want, why you're objecting to these things, rather than saying, "Oh no, we've got to save some trees. It comes across as trees being more important than the working transport system." So you've got to get the right headlines on the campaigns, or it just looks like people trying to keep Cambridge frozen and protect their house prices or make sure it doesn't change or something.
I think it's a terribly important point because it sounds a good idea to try and make buses work better. But if your scheme isn't going to work, then it's pointless doing it. If schemes that make it worse, it's even more silly than what's happening now. But what I would hope is that people could come together and bring the kind of expertise that Edward has shown and others have spoken about with the ones who are going to campaign. So if you guys can all get it together, it's going to make a real difference, I think, because there's a wealth of experience, ideas, and things that have come up here tonight. I certainly hope that the City Board, when they see the film, will actually take it seriously. Anyway, another woman, if possible. Okay, thank you. Yes. Sorry, your name?
Sorry, Kate DeCourcy.
Yeah.
Was it Mr. Carden who said, sorry,
yes, it was.
We should go to our councillors and lobby our councillors?
Go to the council.
Our councillors.
No, not to the council. Just for the specific area meetings. Yes. Where the councillors for one area altogether.
Well, I've found in the last year that our councillors are not to be trusted. And they have mixed allegiances. And they don't always declare them, and others agendas than the ones they profess to have. And so the first time in my life, I thought twice about saying this, because if the city deal hear this, they'll be cheering, cheering, they're good. Not all of them. But so the first time in my life I didn't vote in the May elections. I'm very depressed about it. One local councillor where I live said we have democracy, we don't. And if you consider a meeting on the 3rd of April 2012 at South Cants Hall about moving the Cox and Hayes Tennis Club from Clark Maxwell Road to a lovely field that Trinity bought at the end on Branch to Town Rounds to the southwest of Cambridge, Newman. You could hear one South Wales District Councillor put her hand up and say, "What's this I hear about a member writing to the Vice Chancellor? My goodness, the rooms were called there. My goodness, there are mixed allegiances there. I won't say any more. But the person who listens to me speaking knows exactly what I mean in the City Deal Board."
Thank you.
Stuart.
Yes.
There's a lady down here, I think you can't see behind the pillar.
Thank you. Right.
Shall I?
Yes, I don't know how relevant this may be, but having voted to remain in the recent election.
Can't hear.
Sorry. Having voted to remain in the recent EU election, I've been very dismayed by the dominance of the Brexiters. But I think it may give us a time window because nobody is sure at all what the economic consequences of Brexit would be. And it may well be that things like City Deal, the amounts allegedly to be allocated to the NHS and so on, will not survive the consequences of further examination and so on of these things. So we should get together as much as possible to pursue some of the paths that have been mentioned this evening. I was also very disturbed some months ago to hear that council staff had several meetings with developers which weren't revealed to the councillors. And that seems to me extremely bad form.
Right, thank you. Can I just put in an advertisement here? Cambridge Commons has just done a big study of health inequalities in Cambridge, which we will be publishing in about 2 weeks' time. And what it shows is that the degree of inequalities in how long people live in different wards, poor and rich wards, huge differences, and also huge differences in the lifetime that is free of either disability or really very, very marked inequalities, which are all down to the economic and social inequalities which divide our city. Right, that's the advert over. Yes, that person there.
Hello, my name is Jessie Nisbet. I think taking over from the person who's just been speaking, one of the things, I don't know how we're going to do it, I don't know how we're going to make sure that when I listened to, but what needs to happen is that all of these aspects need to be considered in a holistic way. We need to think about economy, housing, education, transport, including access to all services, particularly health, for everybody. It's no use talking about housing on its own. It's no use talking about transport on its own. It needs to be done as a whole, so that people in new houses have somewhere to go to the doctor, their children to go to school, people who are getting older and live in care homes and so on have people to look after them. None of these things can be managed in little isolated ways. It must be done in a holistic way.
Thank you very much. And in my view, that's what we really need the City Board to do. Give us a holistic picture of what its intentions are, and what its policies are, and how they add up and interact. Otherwise, we just get this fragmented discussion about this area or that area, that bus lane or that cycle path. And it's not good enough. They all interact on each other. We've had a really good debate there. I've certainly learned an awful lot. Just want to say from the city, from a Cambridge Commons point of view, we're incredibly grateful for you all coming along. And I hope that, Wendy is now going to put forward a resolution on behalf of Beck. On behalf of the village.
Yes, we thought it might be helpful to just have some sort of signing off of all the kind of things that we've been discussing this evening. And so we thought it might be helpful to have a simple resolution that perhaps, that we could all support. So we'd like to call for a show of hands or a resolution which is, we have no confidence in the City Deal's bus lane proposals and consider the consultations and decision-making processes to be flawed and lacking in transparency. We call upon the City Deal to consider instead better, smarter ideas, such as those already suggested by experts and residents. Can I have a show of hands to see the ayes, please? And anybody not in favour?
I think I'm probably not.
No, it's too narrow.
Too narrow. Well, we wanted something that would be a signature of what we discussed. Yeah, we appreciate that it's a narrow resolution, but I think the feeling was that in terms of the bus lane proposals, that seemed to be something that a lot of people would support. So, and we also, in terms of surely, no one would be against the idea of considering better, smarter ideas. You want the City Deal as a whole? So what you want is no confidence in the City Deal as a whole. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, sorry. There are some things, yes, in the City Deal. I mean, in terms of, we're not saying we don't want the money, in terms of, there are lots of good things that could be done with City Deal money. There's the Chisholm Trail, some people think is very good, in terms of the... Hello, Katie. So that's Julius's point, which is we don't want this money if it's going to ruin our city. We want you to go back. Our resolution is we want you to go back and get us a better deal. Is that what everybody says? Can we look at this? Hands on that? A better deal. I know, that's right. I mean, the thing is, it's difficult to be very specific, you see. We're all going to have, everybody's going to be slightly discreet. So we just have to have something that is about a general consensus about expressing our dissatisfaction with City Deal and the fact that it's not right. What we're being offered is not right. We don't want that stake. Okay. Yes, okay. What we do want is, we all have said we do want to significantly improve City Deal process, which is to demonstrate that there is proper engagement, transparency, accountability. I think that's something that we all definitely want. And proper research. We want proper research. We don't want to be just given stuff that's not being properly thought through or researched. Real information. Anything else?
Yes, could it be rephrased that we have no confidence in the City Deal's proposals on transport rather than just the bus lanes?
Okay, we have no confidence in City Deal proposals on transport. Funny enough, we actually did start off with that, but we wondered whether that maybe too, why? But we don't, there are some things that people think, as I say, some people like the idea of Chisholm Trail, and the fact that the idea of, cycleway routes is good, it's just how they're done. Yeah, sorry. Lady here, sorry, yeah, over here.
I think that the proposal has to be specific, but I would add to the end.
Yeah.
And as a result of all these considerations, we do not have confidence in the City Deal.
We do, as a result of all these deliberations, we do not have considerations. We do not have confidence in the City Deal. Can I see hands on that? Too narrow. Well, we are. This is Cambridge. This is talking shop here. Yeah. Okay, well, can you come up with... What was people saying is, we need to have something positive going forward. We want to be constructive here. But, this is about, ideas and vision. Hello?
If you put a resolution with the council or the council or the government, you need to make a positive, constructive statement. Saying we don't agree with it.
Yeah, no, I agree. We want something positive, constructive statement. Well, that was supposed to be the end of the resolution, which was calling the City Deal to consider better, smarter ideas and incorporating the ideas of what somebody said was better research, more time, or well thought through. Hello? And also think about the money, which is we don't want the money unless it's getting the right kind of proposals. Okay. Yep. Okay, more time. So, Jean, can you give me what do you reckon? We could argue about this all night, yes. This is Cambridge. Okay, so we agreed, we weren't agreed on the first resolution, which was we have no confidence. We do want something to go forward to the City Deal. We have no confidence in the City Deal's bus lane proposal. Is that right, Jean? Okay. Stuart, do you want to have a say? Everybody happy will say.
Sorry.
That is
okay. Can you hear me? I think that we just have to trust Wendy to actually incorporate the very major suggestions that have come from the floor, and we have to trust her to do that. I agree. I think it is just a too narrow proposal that she put forward at the beginning, but actually, I think you've given her enough things and her colleagues enough ideas to actually stiffen it up and make it more positive and more we will win, and I hope we do. It's 9 o'clock now. We've only booked the church for 9 o'clock. Thank you all so much for coming along. Thank you, Terry and Stuart and Wendy, for coming along and talking. And let's just have a good evening. Have a good fight afterwards. Thank you very much.
We did all vote for that first resolution. There was only one vote against it. And we will take on board, but we do have to have something specific to go to the City Deal Board. And we will be putting all those other points you made. Thank you very much, everybody.